In this video I'm going to run through the teaching points for the bent over kettlebell row, the kettlebell bent over row, whichever way you want to say it. This is another great exercise for working on the back, especially the upper back around the shoulders, but also this brings in more strength and stability of the lower back, core, and into the glutes and the legs as well, because this time you're almost in a semi-squat, a bent over squat. I'll demonstrate the exercise first. I'm going to do the alternating bent over row just with the one kettlebell, and I'll show you the other variations later. So as you can see, the most of the focus is on the back, because you're in that position where you are bent over. You're not bent like this, you're sitting back into a partial squat, and then you're bending over from there. So the bend's coming from your hips, not from your back as such. You're actually keeping your back straight, your head up as you're squatting. But it wouldn't be called a bent over row if you weren't to bend somewhere. So in order to allow the focus of the actual pulling to be on the upper back and around the shoulders, then you have to bend over a bit further to allow those muscles to work. Because if you're upright, I mean, you're not really going to get the full range of movement there, so you have to be bent over, keeping everything really tight, and then pulling. So in order to start the exercise, slightly wider stance. Imagine maybe shoulder width apart for the squat, the beginning of the exercise, and then keeping the kettlebell in between the feet, just slightly closer to one side, whichever side you're going to lift first. And then bend at the hips and the knees, keeping the core tight, the lower back straight, and this is the point where you bend the hips up slightly so that you are in a semi-upright position. And from here, keeping the head straight, looking forward, not looking up or down, because you want to follow that, so keeping the core really tight, keeping the pressure off the lower back when you're going to lift a weight especially. Then pull the kettlebell up, keeping the arm close to the side, and then swap hands, keeping everything really stable. And really pull. Temptation is, whenever you're here and you're pulling, is to actually stand up with it. And of course, not only is that disrupting your stability, potentially, it's also, you're actually using the lower back muscles as well, and you're not getting the full range of movement from the pulling. So try not to do that. Try and keep an eye on your form after each rep, making sure that your starting position is the same each time. The other variations of this, obviously with one kettlebell, you're limited to single arm kettlebell rows, but if you're doing the bent over row and you're wanting to bring in more of the core and the legs and things, then you can do the wider stance again, keeping everything straight, everything tight, and then do X amount of repetitions on one side, and then swap. Notice how when I'm rowing and keeping my elbow close to my side, and that is because you really want to get the squeezing off around the shoulder blade, you're almost squeezing it inwards and around the back of the shoulder, just to get the right muscles working. If you're using a weight and it's coming out here, you're really only going to be working more into the deltoid, and you could actually injure around the shoulder stabilizing joint or muscles there, so be careful of that, just keeping everything into their sockets, like their shoulders back and down. The next thing is if you have two kettlebells. There is a type of row where you're actually a narrower stance and the kettlebells are coming like this, but with these wider kettlebells, they rub against the side of my leg. So I prefer the wider stance anyway, because you get a better base with the two kettlebells. It's going to be, now remember, you're going to have double weight, so making sure that you're really still and that it doesn't pull on your lower back. If it does, then stop and go back to either the single arm bent over row or the single arm row with the split stance that I did in my last video. So from here, then remembering keeping everything really tight. Making sure that whenever after you row up, you don't drop down, because you're going to go with that. It's going to jolt your lower back and you're not getting the full benefit of the exercise anyway. So that's really the bent over row. There is another type of row which is a more explosive style. This is the ballistic row. It is going back to the single arm bent over row. Instead of just pulling, you're actually swapping hands. So the added benefit of that is you're bringing in more of the fast twitch muscle fibres, and you're working on speed and power rather than strength. So you know, that's a fair enough exercise, and it's bringing in more of the cardiovascular system, so it's more tiring in that way, and more out of breath by the end of it. Quite like that for a bit of variation, although it does kill your grip. So your forearms will tire. So just a quick recap. In your wider squat stance, feet facing outwards, then bend at the hips and the knees, and you're forward, bringing the body forward, but the back remains straight. The head in line with the spine. The shoulders are in position, they're not rolling forward, keeping them stable and back. So whenever the kettlebell is down here between the feet, then grab onto the handle, stabilise before the pull, keeping the arm close to the side, pulling back, allowing the shoulders to go back into the socket, really tensing those muscles, lowering it slowly, not letting it drop, swapping hands, and again. Whenever the kettlebell is on one side, the risk is that you actually are pulled to one side. So you really must ensure that your body and your torso is absolutely stable to prevent that from happening. If you're increasing the weight and you're wanting to use two kettlebells, then again, just remembering whenever you're about to grab onto the kettlebells, you're not rounding the back and your head is up. And you're still in a bent position, but everything is straight and your glutes and your quads are tight, you're gripping into the floor, everything is really stable, and then you're going back. And that's it. That's the kettlebell bend over row and the kettlebell ballistic row. And I will be back with another video on the kettlebell renegade row.